HaKadosh Boker Tov, we're just continuing with Halachot of Halakat Nirot Siman Samech Gimel. We spoke yesterday about that the second that the majority of the Kahal, they accept upon themselves Shabbat, so everybody else is Nigrar Acharehem, which means that they are drawn after them, which means that we automatically also accept upon ourselves the Shabbat. And we spoke about what happens if you have a few different Batei Knesiot or you have a few different places. But if you're going to have that, for example, all the Batei Knesiot in this area, they would come and they would pray by Peleg HaMincha on Erev Shabbat, which means the early minyan, so therefore automatically you would be drawn after them, because if all the Batei Knesiot are doing the same, that is the concept of Rovat Tzibur, that they are accepting upon themselves Shabbat on Erev Shabbat. We are drawn after them, that we also must accept upon ourselves Shabbat. The question now comes, what happens if you have a case where the majority of people are not in the Beit Knesset, and the Beit Knesset itself, they did accept upon themselves Shabbat, which means the majority are not in the Beit Knesset. So here he actually brings down something very, very interesting. He says, what happens, for example, if you would have a Beit Knesset, and the majority of people, they live far away, so therefore they can't come to the Beit Knesset. So you have the Beit Knesset, they're accepting upon themselves Shabbat. Does the majority which are not in the Beit Knesset, are they nigradim, are they come and they're drawn after, right, the ones which are coming to the Beit Knesset? So here he says the answer is no. He says it's only going to be the majority. The only exception to this would be is if they're not Shomer Torah Mitzvot. Why? He says if they're going to be Shomer Torah Mitzvot, which means that they pray and everything, and they just can't come to the Beit Knesset because it's very, very far away, or whatever the circumstances might be, then the majority do not go after the minority. But if the majority are not Shomer Torah Mitzvot, and you have at the Beit Knesset, and the Beit Knesset, they're accepting upon themselves Shabbat early, and let's say there's only one Beit Knesset in the area or in the city, right, or in the Yishuv, wherever it is they are, whether it's in the Eretz Yisrael or the diaspora, so then what would happen is that there you would be going after the Beit Knesset, because since the majority are not going to be Shomer Torah Mitzvot, so therefore they do not go after them, they go after the ones which are going to be Shomer Torah Mitzvot. Everything that we mentioned now is only to do with Erev Shabbat. Motzei Shabbat, this does not apply. What does that mean? What happens in Motzei Shabbat? Immediately they want to come and they want to do Arvit. So immediately right when when Shabbat finishes, they start praying Arvit. Now the majority of the Kehilot, they're still in the middle. So he comes and he says, even though to do with the entrance, meaning when you come into Shabbat, we go after the majority and automatically it's a Subim Lacha. On Motzei Shabbat, we don't go after the majority, which means that as long as it's after Shabbat, they could pray Arvit, and therefore even if it's going to be the minority, they're able to do Melacha immediately afterwards. The last halacha is going to be with the woman. Is the woman and the family members, are they drawn after the husband? And the answer is that, first of all, there is a big machloket. However, in the Halakha L'Maaseh, he's saying over here that at the end of the day, the women are not obligated to go after, whether it's going to be the husband, to do with Kabbalat Shabbat, and that's what we do every single Shabbat. Here, if you remember, I did bring down, if you remember, last time was a machloket between Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Vosner, but basically the halakha is that what happens is that since the entire reason why we're doing early Shabbat is not because it's the halakha that way, it's just for logistics. We want to do it early so we get home, we have young children, we want to come and do Shabbat early in order that nobody falls asleep at the table. So therefore, in such a case, there's no problem whatsoever that we're going to accept upon ourselves Shabbat here early, right? It's not that early, by the way, but remember, Kabbalat Shabbat is only going to be by Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat, which is a little bit later, which means we do Mincha before Peleg HaMincha, and then after Mincha, some people do Shir HaShirim, or even after that, you have the Kabbalat Shabbat, but you're not only accepting upon yourself Shabbat by Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat, you're not accepting upon yourself Shabbat by Lechun Anena. It's only much later on, or according to the Kabbalah, Boi Kala, which is a few seconds before the Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat. According to Ashkenazim, it's only by Barechu. But however, though, according to Maran, Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat, so therefore he comes and he says, here the woman would be able to come and accept upon herself Shabbat whenever it is later on. Obviously, we did mention last time, Lechatechila, she should already accept upon herself Shabbat before you come home. So right before you're entering the house, she should already do the candle lighting in order that she's already in Shabbat, because it's not respectful that you're coming home and then, there's still Chilul Shabbat going on. So that, yes, but technically speaking, she has much more time afterwards in order for the accepting upon the Shabbat. So those are three different halachot. That number one, to do with the majority of the tzibur, it's the majority of the tzibur that are in the Beit Knesiot. If the majority are out of the Beit Knesset, so then they're not obligated to accept upon themselves Shabbat unless they're not Shomer Torah Mitzvot, then yes, even though they're not coming to the Beit Knesset for whatever reason that there is. And then the other one is to do with the entire concept of Motzei Shabbat, and then with women to do with when is their acceptance of the Shabbat, that it's nothing dependent to do with the man whatsoever.